The restaurant was one of those upscale steakhouses in downtown Chicago where the lighting is deliberately dim, the wine list is thicker than a phone book, and every table costs more than most people's weekly grocery budget. My father had chosen it, of course. He always chose places like this for family dinners, establishments where the atmosphere itself seemed designed to remind you of success, wealth, and the supposed hierarchy of who had made it and who hadn't. I was 32 years old, and I had been sitting through these dinners my entire adult life. My name is Rebecca Chen. I'm a software engineer at a mid-sized tech company in San Francisco, and before you think that sounds impressive, let me tell you, in my family, it's never been enough. It will never be enough. Because I'm not my brother Marcus, the cardiac surgeon. I'm not my sister Victoria, the corporate lawyer married to a hedge fund manager. I'm just Rebecca. The middle child. The one who studied computer science instead of medicine or law. The one who moved across the country to play with computers, as my father so eloquently puts it. The disappointment. Tonight's dinner was supposedly to celebrate my parents' 35th wedding anniversary. The whole family had flown in, Marcus from Boston with his wife Jennifer and their two perfect children, Victoria from New York with her husband Brad, and me from San Francisco, alone as always. My girlfriend Maya couldn't make it. Or rather, I hadn't invited her, because introducing my girlfriend to my family felt like feeding a lamb to wolves, and I loved her too much to subject her to that. We were halfway through the meal. My father was on his second scotch, which meant his filter was already starting to dissolve. My mother was picking at her salmon, contributing the occasional "ham" to the conversation while mentally calculating, I'm sure, how everything looked to the other diners. Marcus was explaining, in excruciating detail, a complex surgery he'd performed last week. Victoria was one-upping him with a story about a multi-million-dollar case she'd just won. And I was quiet. As I usually was at these dinners. Because I'd learned long ago that contributing to the conversation only invited comparison, and comparison in this family only ever went one way. Rebecca, you're awfully quiet, my mother said, as if noticing me for the first time all evening. How's work going? It was a trap. It was always a trap. But I answered anyway. It's good. We just launched a new feature that I led the development on. It's getting great user feedback. That's nice, dear, my mother said in that tone that meant she had no idea what I was talking about and no interest in finding out. What exactly do you do again? Asked Jennifer, Marcus's wife, with what I'm sure she thought was polite interest. Before I could answer, my father jumped in. She works with computers. Programs or something. He waved his hand dismissively. I don't really understand it. Not like what Marcus does, saving actual lives. Or Victoria, protecting companies from legal threats. Rebecca's job is more abstract. There it was. The diminishment. Subtle enough to sound like simple ignorance, pointed enough to land exactly where he intended. Software engineering is actually pretty complex, Dad, I said, keeping my voice level. The app we just launched serves over 2 million users. The code I write literally impacts people's daily lives. I'm sure it does, he said, in that patronizing tone he'd perfected over decades. It's just not quite the same as surgery or law, is it? Marcus, to his credit, looked uncomfortable. Victoria was studying her wine glass with sudden intense interest. They'd both been on the receiving end of Dad's commentary over the years, though less frequently than me. They'd chosen the right paths, after all. Different doesn't mean less important, I said quietly. Of course not, my father said, but his tone said otherwise. Though I have to say, when we were paying for your college education at Stanford, what was that, $200,000? We did rather hope you'd do something more significant with it. The table went silent. Even the ambient noise of the restaurant seemed to fade. My mother's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Marcus's eyes went wide. Victoria actually gasped a little. But my father, emboldened by Scotch and his own sense of superiority, continued. I mean, let's be honest, he said, his voice taking on that joking tone that meant he absolutely wasn't joking. We do sometimes regret paying for that fancy education when you're out there in California coding websites or whatever it is you do. We could have spent that money on something more worthwhile. He laughed. Actually laughed. As if he'd just told the funniest joke in the world instead of casually decimating his daughter in front of her entire family in a public restaurant. Nobody else laughed. But nobody defended me either. And something inside me, something that had been bending and bending under the weight of 32 years of casual cruelty disguised as family banter, finally snapped. Not into anger. Not into tears. Into something colder and clearer. Clarity. I reached for my purse. Pulled out my wallet. And before anyone could say anything, I flagged down our waiter. "Yes, ma'am," he said, approaching with that professional politeness waiters in expensive restaurants perfect. "I'd like the check, please," I said calmly. "For the entire table." "Rebecca, what are you doing?" my mother asked, her voice pitched with that particular anxiety she got when she worried about appearances. "I'm taking care of the bill," I said simply. "Don't be ridiculous," my father said. "I invited everyone. I'm paying." "No," I said, and my voice was steady in a way it had never been with him before. "You're not." "I am." The waiter, sensing tension but committed to his tip, said, "I'll bring the check right away, ma'am." "Rebecca, this is unnecessary," my father said, his face starting to redden. "I can afford to pay for my own family dinner." "I know you can," I said. "But you just told me, in front of everyone here, that you regret spending money on my education. That you think it was wasted. So let me make it easy for you. From now on, you won't have to spend another dollar on me. Not on dinner. Not on anything. Consider your investment closed. I'll take it from here. Before you hear what happened next, I need you to do something for me. If this story is resonating with you, if you've ever been underestimated by your own family, if you've ever had to prove your worth to people who should have seen it all along, hit that subscribe button. Leave a like if you want to see how this ends. And comment below, have you ever had to stand up to family like this? I read every comment. Now, let's continue. The waiter returned with the check. I didn't even look at the total, I just handed him my credit card. My father's face was progressing from red to purple. My mother looked like she might faint. Marcus and Victoria were frozen, uncertain whether to intervene or stay out of it. Jennifer and Brad were trying to become invisible. "This is absurd," my father sputtered. "You're being dramatic." "Am I?" I asked, and I was surprised by how calm I sounded. "You just told me you regret investing in my future. That seems pretty dramatic to me." "I'm just responding proportionally." "I didn't mean," he started. "Yes, you did," I interrupted. "You meant exactly what you said. You've been meaning it for years. Every joke about my career. Every comparison to Marcus and Victoria. Every dismissal of what I do. You've been very clear about how you feel about my choices. I just finally started listening." The waiter returned with my card and receipt. The bill was $847.32. I added a $170 tip, 20%, because whatever was happening with my family, the waiter didn't deserve to suffer for it, and signed with a flourish. "There," I said, standing up. "Anniversary dinner paid for. Consider it a gift. And maybe consider it payment in full for that education you regret so much." "Rebecca, sit down," my mother hissed. "You're making a scene." "No, Mom," I said. "Dad made a scene when he told his daughter her life was a waste of money. I'm just leaving it." I grabbed my jacket from the back of my chair. Looked at each of them in turn. Marcus looked guilty. Victoria looked shocked. My mother looked mortified. And my father looked, honestly, I couldn't read his expression. Some mixture of anger and maybe, just maybe, the tiniest bit of shame. "For the record," I said, "that abstract job you don't understand? I make $190,000 a year. That fancy education you regret? I paid off the student loans I took out for living expenses within 3 years of graduating. That playing with computers career? I've built software used by millions of people. I own my condo outright. I have a 6-month emergency fund and a healthy retirement account. I donate to charity. I have a life I'm proud of. I paused, letting that sink in. But none of that matters, does it? Because it's not surgery. It's not law. It's not what you would have chosen for me. And I'm done trying to make you proud of something you've decided isn't worth being proud of. Rebecca, Marcus started, finally finding his voice. Don't, I said gently. You're great, Marcus. You too, Victoria. This isn't about you. This is about me finally understanding that I can't make someone value me who's already decided I'm not valuable enough. I looked at my father one last time. Happy anniversary, Dad. I hope the next 35 years bring you everything you think you deserve. And then I walked out. The Chicago night air hit me like a slap, cold and sharp and clarifying. My hands were shaking, not from fear or sadness, but from adrenaline. From the sheer relief of finally saying what I'd needed to say for so many years. My phone started buzzing before I even made it to the corner. Text after text. I glanced at them as I walked. Marcus, I'm sorry. I should have said something. He was way out of line. Victoria, call me when you can. Are you okay? My mother, how could you embarrass your father like that? In public? And from my father, you're being childish. I didn't respond to any of them. Not yet. Instead, I called Maya. Hey babe, she answered on the second ring. How's the dinner from hell? I walked out, I said, and I could hear the slight tremor in my own voice. I paid for everyone's meal and I walked out. Oh my God. What happened? So I told her. Everything. The comment, the laughter, the check, the speech. All of it spilling out as I walked through Chicago's downtown streets, past shops closing for the night and couples heading to bars. I'm so proud of you, Maya said when I finished, and her voice was fierce. Do you know how proud I am of you right now? I might have burned a bridge, I said. Babe, that bridge was already on fire. You just stopped standing on it while it burned. I laughed, and it felt good. Better than I'd felt in years at a family dinner. Yeah, maybe you're right. Come home, she said. Come home and let's order terrible pizza and watch bad movies and forget your family exists for a while. I have a flight tomorrow afternoon, I said. Cancel it. Come home tonight. I'll pay the change fee. You shouldn't be alone right now. So I did. I went straight from downtown Chicago to O'Hare. Changed my flight. And by midnight, I was walking into our apartment in San Francisco, into Maya's arms, into a life I'd built that had nothing to do with my family's expectations and everything to do with what I actually wanted. The aftermath of that dinner played out over the next few weeks in a series of text messages, emails, and one extremely awkward phone call. Marcus apologized profusely. He said he'd talked to Dad, told him the comment was unacceptable. He said Dad was processing what happened. I told Marcus I appreciated his support but that this wasn't his fight to fix. Victoria sent a long email about how she'd always admired my courage to do my own thing, how she sometimes wished she'd been brave enough to choose passion over prestige. It was surprisingly vulnerable for Victoria, and I responded with cautious warmth. Maybe there was a relationship to build there, away from the shadow of our parents. My mother called. It went about as well as expected. Lots of, how could you, and, what will people think, and, you need to apologize to your father. I listened for about 5 minutes before saying, Mom, I love you, but I'm not apologizing for refusing to be insulted. If Dad wants to talk to me, he knows where to find me. But it needs to be an actual conversation, not another opportunity for him to diminish what I do. She hung up on me. And my father? Radio silence. For 3 weeks, nothing. Not a text, not an email, nothing. I told myself I was fine with it. That I didn't need his approval or his acknowledgement. That I was a grown woman with a successful career and a loving relationship and a good life, and what did it matter if my father couldn't see that? But of course it mattered. He was still my father. And some small, stubborn part of me still wanted him to be proud. 3 weeks after the dinner, I got an email. Subject line, from Dad. I stared at it for a full minute before opening it. Maya was at work. I was at home, supposedly working but really just procrastinating on a project deadline. I made myself a cup of coffee. Sat down at the kitchen table. And opened the email. Rebecca, it read. I'm not good at this. Apologies. Emotions. Your mother tells me I should call, but I think I can write this better than I can say it. You were right. What I said at dinner was unacceptable. I've been thinking about why I said it, and I don't have a good answer. Maybe because I don't understand what you do, and I've always been uncomfortable with things I don't understand. Maybe because you chose a path so different from what I imagined for you, and I took that as a rejection instead of just a different choice. Your mother showed me your LinkedIn profile. I read about your projects, your accomplishments. I still don't fully understand what full-stack development or agile methodology mean, but I can see that what you do is significant. That people rely on your work. That you're good at it. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not sure I deserve that yet. But I am asking if we can try again. Maybe start smaller. Maybe just coffee, just the two of us, where I can ask questions about your work and actually listen to the answers instead of comparing them to some imaginary standard in my head. I am proud of you, Rebecca. I'm sorry it took me this long to say it. I'm sorry it took you walking out of a restaurant for me to realize I've been making you feel like you had to prove something you never should have had to prove. You're my daughter. You're brilliant and capable, and you've built a life that makes you happy. That should have always been enough. I hope you'll give me a chance to do better. But if you're not ready, I understand. I'll wait. Love, Dad. I read it 3 times. Then I put my head down on the kitchen table and cried. Not sad tears. Not angry tears. Just release. The release of carrying something heavy for so long and finally being able to set it down. I didn't respond right away. I needed time to process, to think about what I wanted. But eventually, after talking it through with Maya and my therapist, I did write back. Dad, thank you for the email. I appreciate the apology. I do want a relationship with you, but you're right that we need to start smaller. I'll be in Chicago for a conference next month. Maybe we can get coffee then. Just us. And yes, you can ask about my work. I'd actually like to explain it to you. Love, Rebecca. We did get that coffee. It was awkward at first. 32 years of communication patterns don't disappear in one conversation. But we talked. Really talked. He asked about my projects, and I explained them in ways he could understand. He told me about his own career, and for the first time, I heard the doubts and insecurities he'd had along the way, the pressure he'd felt to be successful, the way he'd projected all of that onto his kids. It wasn't a magic fix. We're still working on it. There are still moments where he slips into old patterns, where I have to remind him that different doesn't mean less. But we're trying. And that's more than I had before. The dinner incident became, oddly, a turning point not just for my relationship with my father but for how I saw myself. Because standing up in that moment, refusing to accept being diminished, paying that check, it wasn't really about the money. It was about finally valuing myself enough to walk away from people who didn't value me, even when those people were family. It taught me that love doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. That family doesn't get a free pass to make you feel small. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do is set a boundary and enforce it, even when it's hard, even when it causes conflict. Before I finish this story, I want to ask you something. If you've made it this far, if this resonated with you at all, do me a favor. Subscribe to this channel. Leave a like. And most importantly, comment below and tell me, have you ever had to stand up to family? How did it go? What would you say to someone who's struggling with feeling undervalued by the people who should support them most? Your stories matter. Your experiences matter. Share them. Now, let me finish this. I'm still a software engineer. I still live in San Francisco with Maya, who I finally introduced to my family at Christmas, and who my father actually made an effort to get to know. I still make $190,000 a year, and I'm still proud of what I do, regardless of whether it's surgery or law or anything else my parents might have preferred. But the biggest change is this: I stopped waiting for external validation to believe I was enough. I stopped measuring my worth by my family's approval. I stopped apologizing for choosing a life that made me happy even if it didn't match someone else's expectations. That dinner, that awful, painful, ultimately liberating dinner, cost $847.32 plus tip. And you know what? It was worth every penny. Because it bought me something I'd been missing for 32 years, the understanding that I didn't need anyone's permission to value myself. Not even my father's. My name is Rebecca Chen. I'm 32 years old. I'm a software engineer. I'm queer. I live across the country from my family. I chose passion over prestige, code over courtrooms, algorithms over operating rooms. And I'm enough. I was always enough. I just needed to believe it myself. If you're watching this and you're struggling with similar dynamics in your own family, if you're the one who chose differently, who followed a path that your family doesn't understand or respect, who's tired of being compared and found wanting, hear this: you are enough. Your choices are valid. Your career matters. Your happiness counts. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is pick up the check, pay it yourself, and walk out knowing that you don't owe anyone an explanation for living a life that's true to who you are. Thank you for listening to my story. If it meant something to you, if it helped in any way, please subscribe to this channel, leave a like, and share your own story in the comments. Let's create a community of people who refuse to be diminished. Who choose their own worth. Who understand that sometimes standing up means walking out. And remember, you don't need anyone's permission to be proud of yourself. Not even family. Especially not family.